Welcome to William Knowlin's The Bark-Covered House. This is chapter 13, and this certainly tells us a little bit more about what Pioneer, Michigan was like. This chapter is called Methaglin, or the Detected Drink. As will be remembered by the early settlers of Michigan, bee hunting and wild honey constituted one of the comforts and luxuries of life. Father, being somewhat expert in finding bees, found a number of trees, one of which was a large whitewood and stood a full mile or more from home. One day he and I cut it down. It proved to be a very good tree as far as honey was concerned. We easily filled our buckets and returned home, leaving a great quantity in the tree, which we intended to return and get as soon as possible. When we returned, we found to our surprise that the tree had caught fire and was burning quite lively where the honey was secreted. The fire originated from the burning of some straw that Father had used in singeing the bees to prevent their ferocious attack and stinging. We found that the fire had melted some of the honey and that it was running into a cavity in the tree which the bees had cleaned out. It looked as nice as though it had dripped into a wooden bowl, and Father said that there was a chance to save it, and we dipped out a pailful of nice, clear honey, except that it was tinged somewhat in color and made a little bitter by the fire. This formed one of the ingredients used in making the metheglin. We also secured some more very nice honey. Father said, judging by the amount that we got, that he should think that the tree contained at least 100 pounds of good honey, and I should think so too. He said, "This is truly a goodly land, and it flows with milk and honey." He also said that I will make a barrel of metheglin, which will be a very delicious drink for my family and a kind of substitute for the luxuries they left behind. It will slake the thirst of the friendly pioneers who may favor us with a call in our forest home, or those friends who come to talk over the adventures of days now past and prospects of better days to come. But in order to make the metheglin, he must procure a barrel, and this he had to bring some distance on his back, as we had no team. When he got the barrel home and ready to make his metheglin, he located it across two sticks about 3 feet long and 6 inches through. And these he placed at both ends toward the chimney on the chamber floor, and on them next to the chimney he placed the barrel. And he filled it with metheglin and said that the heat of the fire below and the warmth of the chimney above would keep it from freezing. Being placed upon the sticks, he could draw from it at his convenience, which he was quite sure to do when any neighbors called. Neighbors were not very plenty in those days, and we were always glad to see them. When they came, Father would take his mug and go up the ladder and return with it filled with metheglin. And then he would pour out a glass and hand it to the neighbor, who would usually say, "What's this?" And Father would say, "Try it and see." This they usually did. He then told them, "This is my wine. It was taken from the woods, and it is a Michigan drink. The bees helped me make it." It was generally called nice. Of course, he frequently, after a hard day's work, would go up in the chamber and draw some and give us all a drink. It tasted very good to all, especially to me, as will be seen by what follows. So it happened that the chamber where the barrel was kept was the sleeping apartment of myself and brother, John S. I played the more important part in the detected drink, at least I thought so. I found by examining the barrel that by removing a little block, which was placed under the side, and taking out the bung and putting my mouth in its place, I could roll the barrel a little on the sticks, and by being very careful could get a drink with ease. Then, replacing the bung and rolling the barrel back to its place, very careful so as not to make a noise or arouse suspicion, I would put the block in its place with thinking no one was any the wiser but me for the drink, which I thought was very palatable and delicious. Not like the 3 drinks I had gotten from the jug some time before. This continued for some time, very much to my comfort as far as a good drink was concerned. It was usually indulged in at night, after I had undressed my feet and father and mother supposed I had retired. There was another difficulty. I was liable to be exposed by my little brother, John S., who slept with me, so I concluded to take him into my confidence. There were 2 reasons for my doing so. First, I wished him to have something good. Yeah. And second, I wanted to have him implicated with myself, fearing that he might reveal my proceedings, probably more likely. So we enjoyed it together for a few nights. I would drink first and then hold the barrel for him while he drank. We thought we were faring like nabobs, but alas for me, one evening Brother John S. and I retired as usual, leaving father and mother seated by the fire. I suppose talking over the scenes of their early days, or more probably discussing the best way to get along and support their family in this new forest home. I thought, of course, that we must have some good drink before we shut our eyes for the night, and no sooner thought than we went for it. As usual, I removed the block, and out with the bung, and then down with my mouth to the bung hole, and over with the barrel until the delightful liquid reached my lips. My thirst was soon slaked by a good drink, and I relished it first rate. And then came Brother John S.'s turn, and in some way, in attempting to get his drink, I let the barrel slip. He was small, and I had to hold it for him, but this time the barrel went. I grabbed for it and made some racket, and some of the metheglin came out, glug, 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 good, good, and down it went to the chamber floor, which was made of loose boards. It ran through the cracks, and there was a shower below where mother and father were sitting. I was in a quandary. I knew I was doomed unless I could use some stratagem to clear myself from the scrape in which I was so nicely caught. And then, lo, the first thing I heard below was father, apparently very angry, shouting, "William! What in the world are you doing up there with a metheglin barrel?" And then came my stratagem. I began to retch and make a noise as if vomiting, and hallooed to him that I was sick. Of course, I wanted him to make believe that it was the contents of my stomach that was falling at his feet in place of the metheglin. He said he knew better, and it was too sudden of an attack and too much of a shower of metheglin falling at his feet, and I found that I could not make this ruse work. He started for me. His head appeared above the top of the ladder. He had a candle and a gad in his hand. I had been glad to see him often before and afterwards, but this time I saw nothing in him to admire. I found I had entirely failed, and I told him that I would not do it again. Oh, honestly, if he would only let me off, I would never do it again. He would not hear one word I said, but seized hold of my arm and laid it on. Then and there might have heard a noise outside in some distance by some striking against a boy about my size, if there had been anyone around to have heard it. He said he did not whip me so much for the metheglin, but as for lying and trying to deceive him. I do not think I danced a horn, but I did step around lively, maybe a little on tip, he said. He thought he had cured me up, and that the application he gave me would make me well. I crawled into bed very much pleased, indeed, to think the matter was settled, as far as I was concerned. John S. had crawled into bed while I was paying the penalty. Father excused him because he was so young. He said I was the one to blame and must stand it all. And I thought, as all young Americans do, that it was rather hard to get such a tanning in Michigan, and that I begun to think myself quite a somebody. From that day or night, I made up my mind that honesty was the best policy, at all events for me. When I went to bed at night, after that, I gave the metheglin barrel a wide berth and a good letting alone, for I had lost my relish for metheglin. The metheglin story is once in a while, until this day, related by John S., especially when we all meet for a family visit. It not unfrequently causes much laughter. I suppose the laughter is caused as much by the manner in which he tells it, he trying to imitate or mimic me, as its funniness. It sometimes causes a tear, perhaps from excessive laughter and maybe from recollections of the past and its associations. It may once in a while cause me to give a dry laugh, but never a sad tear since the night I spilt the metheglin. One way the bee hunter took of finding bees was to go into the woods, cut a sapling off about 4 feet from the ground, square the top of the stump, and put on this a dish of honey in a comb. And then he would take his axe and cut and clear away the brush from around the place so that he could see the bees fly and was able to get their course or line them. This he called a bee stand. In the fall of the year, when there came a warm and clear and sunny day, after the frost had killed the leaves and flowers, and the trees were bare, was the best time to find bee trees. Sometimes when Father and I went bee hunting, he took some old honeycomb and put it on a piece of bark or a log and set it on fire and dropped a few drops of anise on it from a vial. If we were near a bee tree, in a short time a lone bee would come. And when it came, it would fly around a few times and then light on the honeycomb in the dish which it had scented. No doubt it had been out industriously hunting, and now it had found just what it was desired. Very independently, it would commence helping itself and get as much as it could possibly carry off to its home. And then it went, no doubt, astonished some of its comrades with its large load of wealth. It was obtained so quickly and easily that there was plenty more where that came from, and then some of the other bees would accompany it back, all being very anxious to help in securing the honey they had found ready-made. And in a short time, there were several bees in the dish, and others were coming and going, and then it was necessary for us to watch them. It required sharp eyes to get their line. They would rise and circle around higher and higher until they made it out their course, and then they would start like a streak straight for their colony. After we had staked or marked out the line, the next thing was to move the honey 40 or 50 rods ahead. At this time, the bees sometimes appeared a little suspicious. It was sometimes necessary to make a few of them prisoners, even while they were eating, by slipping a cover over them and moving them ahead in the line. This made them a little shy, however, but they soon forgot their imprisonment, and they found too rich a store to be forsaken. And after a little while, they would come flocking back and load themselves as heavily before. And if they flew on in the same direction, it was evident that the bee tree was still ahead. And it was necessary to move the honey again. And if the bees flew crooked and high in zigzag, it was plain that to the bee hunters that they were in very close proximity to the bee tree. When the hunters could get sight of the bees going back and up and towards the treetops, it was an easy matter to find the bee tree, as that would be between the two stands or to the right or right in the hunter's presence. The little bees had in their unceasing industry and through their love of gain labored hard extracting their sweet and had laid it up carefully. And now they pointed out their storehouse by going directly to it when anxious eyes were watching them. The little aeronautic navigators could be seen departing from and returning to their home, and sometimes they went into a little hole in the side of the tree, and other times they entered their homes through a small knothole in a limb near the top of the tree. I saw that a swarm which Father once found went into the tree top more than 80 feet from the ground, and at that distance they appeared not larger than houseflies. The first thing Father did after finding a bee tree was to mark it by cutting the initials of his name on the bark with his pocket knife, and this established his title to the bees. After that, they had a legal owner. The mark on the tree was one of the witnesses. I knew a man who happened to find a bee tree and said that he marked it close to the ground and covered the mark with leaves so that no one could find it. That appeared more sly than wise, as it gave no notice to the others who might find the tree of his ownership or of its having been previously found. So metheglin here is a kind of a mead. It's sort of a spiced mead usually in the cookbooks, and here it sounds like it's just a plain mead, or you might refer to it as a honey wine or a honey beer. And apparently William Knowlin really loved it. So very, very interesting and very funny chapter about, what it was like in Pioneer, Michigan to use every single resource that was at hand, whether it was the trees or the honey that you get from the bees. Such a great, great story. I want to thank you for coming along today, sharing this great fun story with me. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for watching.